Hey, what's up, YouTube? Seems like you guys always find something to complain about, whether it's a snare with an iPhone mic, or the way I film something, or even if there's just like background music, whatever. You'll find something to complain about, right? That's cool. Today I wanted to give a little bit of a tutorial on how I would take a snare from nothing on it to fully tuned, as if I actually cared. We'll be a little more precise with this one. Some of the other videos I've done are kind of run and gun and just like, let's get some heads on it, let's get it close, and then you can fine tune it from there. A couple little quick pieces of info first. I really like to tune everything that I do pretty loose. I like snares to have tone, but I really don't want them to be super high and super tight and way too cracky. I play mostly in church, so I like a snare tone that hits you in the chest but doesn't make you blink and get scared. So I want something that's big, full body, without being too abrasive. So everything that I do for tuning kind of goes back to that. So first, just take that little piece of info and let it get into your brain so that when you make those comments and stuff, you know that up front. All right, let's get to it. So I'm using Evans heads today. I've got a snare side 300 on the Rezo side, and then I've got a brand new HD dry. That's gonna go on the top. This is an acrylic snare by Vertical Drum Co. That's the business that I own. We make snares for churches. They're all semi-custom. Some of the stuff we do is fully custom. This is an 8x14 acrylic, Coke bottle green, centered beaver tail lugs, double-sided triple flange hoops. It's an 8 lug, so I can tune it low. You might be wondering why I would want to take an acrylic and tune it low. Well, like I just said, I play mostly in churches, and I want a low snare for that. I cut really wide snare beds on this guy, so that you can put a pretty big size snare wire on it. A lot of acrylics you'll see have really, really narrow snare beds. This one's really wide. It goes all the way out to these lugs. That way you can put a 42 strand on, you can put a 32 or 30 strand on, whatever you want. And it's gonna sound really good. It kind of gives a different feel for acrylics, in my opinion, and makes me like them a lot more. All right, let's get to it. So I got the Evans snare side 300 on there. On this snare, I don't really have to do a lot to seat this. I'm just gonna get these tension rods in. With these lugs, it's not nearly as precise as when you're doing like tube lugs or something like that. These have a little bit of wiggle here. So this all fits together really nicely. It's really easy. All right, from there, I've got all of the tension rods into the lugs. I'm gonna finger tighten it. Everything I like to do, I work from the logo the same direction. So, got the logo here, matched up with the logo on the drum, especially when it's clear. I think that's really important. So, we're gonna go finger tight here, get these two, and then work my way around the drum that way. Clockwise, if you will. You can do this however the heck you want. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just showing you what I do. Get those comments going, you snarky people. Kind of makes my day sometimes when I hear these comments about like, oh yeah, that's a great drum tuning video, but I hate the background music. Blah, blah, blah. Or why did you do this? Or why didn't you tune it way super high? Because I don't want it to sound like the Saint Anger snare. Anyway, I digress. Once these are all finger tight, we've got it here. They're as tight as I can go with finger. I'm gonna kind of push this down just a little bit, see if I can make any more movement on them. No, not really. Like I said, this drum is very true. You don't really need to seat very much here. With these heads too, it all just fits nicely. I'm gonna take a key, drum key like this, or like this, whatever. Something where you don't actually turn the main part of the drum key for torque, where you have like a thumb grab area. I don't know, that sounds like a snowboard trick. This one is really my favorite from Revolution. This one from Evans works really great too. There's some other methods too. We're just gonna go with that. So I'm also gonna start from the logo. On this one, I'm just gonna go around. I don't really need to go back and forth too much. I'm not getting it super tight yet. You can go back and forth, that's great, whatever. We just wanna get something so that most of this is kind of seated well. From there, I'm pushing on it again. Now we will go as tight as we can with this thumb. And I am gonna go across so it seats straight. Really wanna make sure this is like as tight as we can with finger tightness with the thumb key. I'm making sure everything seats really nicely as I do this too. I think a lot of people don't really understand that your reso side on your snare is actually going to be way more important for your tone than your batter side. Reso side, you're not going to muffle, you're not going to change anything. Your batter side, you get away with some different heads, some different tunings, change the muffling, blah, blah, blah. This reso side is going to be a lot more important for your overall tone. Okay, that's as tight as I can get with the thumb key part of it. Everything's seated nicely. It all looks really nice and true, real square to me. So from there, I'm gonna go a quarter turn. So from here to there, not a full half turn. Quarter turn here. I'm gonna do across the drum like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I've got that one. You could just crank this down. Like you'll see a lot of people that will do 2 full turns at this point. What happens when you do that though is you kind of get this bending effect with the head rather than everything sort of seating slowly and evenly. So I like to start it off going finger tight like this, finger tight on the key, and then a quarter turn. Now everything's seated real nice. We could do half turns for each. Half turn here. I'm gonna go back around the drum the same way that I just did. If you want to get real fancy, you could use 2 drum keys here. Okay, so we got the finger tight, thumb tight, quarter turn, half turn. Do another half turn here. We're gonna bring this head way up. Even though I want this snare tuned low, this reso head's gonna be tuned real high. That gives you a much more responsive feel. Gives you more body to your tone when the top head, when the batter head's not super tight. Okay, from here, I'm not sure if I want to do another full half turn. I'm gonna give it a quarter turn and kind of check it first. You can sort of feel the tension too. This is getting pretty tight. We'll listen to it here in just a second. Okay, so before I move on, I want to talk just a little bit about snare beds. On a snare on the reso side, you have to have part of it come down so that the snare wires can come across the drum. If you don't, that snare wire is going to sit too high and it's not actually going to contact very well. When you do this, you have a snare bed that comes down. That actually brings that snare wire down a little bit so it contacts the entire head. Doesn't give you weird buzz and weird rattle, and that's really where we get that tone. This has really aggressive snare beds. I've cut a pretty deep channel for the snare beds, and like I said, it's pretty wide. So with that, that means I have less tension on these 2 tension rods, these 2 lugs here, than I do over here on the sides. So if we're gonna check it on the tune bot right now, these will be higher than these. So I'm gonna bring this up just a little bit. We're gonna go maybe a quarter turn on each of the lugs around the snare beds. This is more important on a 8 lug build than it is on a 10 lug. 10 lug, you have 3 lugs over here on each side, that are not around the snare beds and 2 that are closer, and they're going to be in a little bit more. You still have to tighten those, but not quite as much as you do when you're playing an 8 lug. So pay attention to your drum and kind of how it's built. I know that might be more advanced for a lot of people, but it's super important to learn. So let's give it a listen here. This again, I'm just recording this on a phone. Don't judge the audio, please. Sometimes it's helpful to go with one of the lugs that is not connected to a snare bed and one that is. So instead of going straight across here, you go from here to here. Or you could go from here to here. Here to here. This one seems a little bit low here. This one seems a little low there. I think these on the snare bed are still just a tiny bit low. I'm just doing this part by ear. Check it with the tune bot here in a sec. That sounds great to my ear. Disagree in the comments. All right, so on the tune bot, a lot of people do just clip their tune bot like this. I don't prefer that method. I really like to hold it and kind of move it around the drum so it's facing the same direction. So any acoustics in the room are going to bounce back relatively the same. And if the tune bot does capture any of that, you get a more accurate tone if you're keeping it the same like this. I don't like to go like this. That would be weird on your wrist. Also, would probably not give you very good tuning. So I'm going to keep it like this as I go around. That gets the tune bot closer to each lug and gives me a better reading than if I just leave it over here. Yes, the argument here is that you pick up some of the frequency through the actual vibration in the drum. I actually don't want that. I just want it to listen and hear what it hears and tell me the numbers. On this, you got to hit it pretty hard. I like to use the butt end of the stick rather than the tip. I feel like it gives me a better reading if I'm hitting with a bigger piece. Some people even use mallets here so they don't get as much attack. So I'm at 400. That's right where I want to be. You could go anywhere in the 375 to, 410 or something like that. All these were right at 400. If you know how to use a tune bot, you can filter it. I want it right there. I mean, I've got a couple that are $3.99. I'm not sure if you can see that on the phone. Couple that are 400. No worries. We're right there. If you're within about 3 or 4 hertz, you're good. Okay, we're great on that. So, this is tuned. Sounds good to my ear. The tune bot agrees with my ear. That's rare, huh? From there, I'm going to put a snare wire on. I still don't even have the batter head on. If you're still with me, cool. Should I tell you to like and subscribe or something? No, I'm not going to do that. That's too Fortnite-ish. All right, so from here, I'm using a Puresound 30 for a 14-inch. It's an 8x14 snare. I'm using their snare wire nylon string from Puresound. It's nice. It's real sensitive. Works out really well. It's not what I always use. If you've seen other videos, you've seen a variety of things. I also don't always use Puresound. They make really good stuff, but through our wholesaler for Vertical Drum Co., we get some really good German metal made ones that are pretty awesome that I like to use, especially if I'm doing a 42 strand or something. To each their own. If you're gonna be in the studio, like my friend Christian, shout out Christian. Oh my gosh, I was not made to be a YouTuber. If you're in the studio, you definitely want a smaller snare wire. Playing a 30 or 42 in the studio when you have close mics and stuff can be a little bit hectic. You get less control over your sound. playing something like this live in a worship setting, this is what you need. You want a fat tone, you want longer tones anyway. But like I said, to each their own. You choose what you want, and then criticize the people that don't agree. That's how we do it, right? Hashtag America. All right, so I've got snare wire on one side. I like to start with the butt end. I'm not sure why, rather than the throw off side. It's just how I do it. So this is on there and centered nicely. I lied, let's give it a little more room. You really want your snare wire to be centered within the drum. If you're too close to either hoop, that's gonna be an issue, especially if you have a wider snare wire. You have less room to navigate that. So get it pretty well centered. Tighten up the butt side. And hear the jokes rolling in already. You said butt. From there, we're gonna go to the throw off side. This one's an indie throw. Now, this isn't a brand new snare. I've had this for a few years. It was at my friend's studio for a while, so it's coming back here, and I'm gonna start playing it more regularly. So I'm kind of giving it a full tune-up. We might have to adjust the throw because of that. But if you're starting with a new throw, generally try to loosen this knob as much as you can. Righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, right? We want this to be fairly loose here, even when it's engaged, if you use an indie throw. If you're using a trick throw, look at some of my other videos on how to adjust that. I don't want to be too long-winded here. Trying to show you as much as I can of just, you know, how I get a snare really set when it matters, because a lot of the other videos were just, hey, here's a quick setup, do this, and you'll be close. And apparently some people love that, other people don't. Okay, so as I'm tightening this, I'm actually pulling it up. I don't want all that room for movement there. So I've pulled this up as I tighten it. That just makes it so that, you know, when the snare's flipped over, this is going to be down, but we want that pulling the snare wire up. So right now, if we pull this piece up as we tighten it, and then we're pulling the wire through, that pulls the snare wire down, and this goes up. So that's there. You want to make sure you have some sort of a tone that this is engaged. And when you come off, that disengages. We're good. Cool. All right, let's flip it to the batter side. So I know that that reso side is tuned. Snare wire might not be tight enough. Might be a little loose. Could be too tight. I don't know. Let's go batter head. So on this one, I'm playing a coated batter head on a clear drum. I know. Huge faux pas. We're going to be all right. Let's get this guy on. We're going to do kind of the same thing as I did earlier. We're just going to get all the tension rods in, make sure nothing's cross-threaded. Just be nice to them. From there, we're going to take it to finger tight. After we go finger tight, we're going to go thumb tight on the drum key. And then after that, we're going to start giving it small turns. I'm probably going to tune this up a little higher than what I would normally do. It seems like you YouTube people are very opinionated on snare drums. So, okay, we're going finger tight here. Working across the drum, I'm tightening two at the same time. I really want this to seat as flat as possible. So, okay. Nice and finger tight here. We're gonna give it a little bit of a push. I wanna make sure that this just seats really straight so we don't have any tuning issues. With Evans heads, rarely ever becomes an issue. With Remo, you kind of got to break some glue and really seat those heads well. Okay, they're all finger tight on the tension rods. I'm going to go to the thumb key. We're going to go around the drum here. This first little pass doesn't matter as much. You could just go around, whatever. Don't stress it too much. The goal is just getting this head seated flat and working the tension slowly rather than, you know, 2 turns on one of the lugs and then having to even everything out afterwards. Okay, so with these thumb keys, here's the crazy thing. I am already going to have a tone on this. I mean, it's almost playable. If I put the tune bot on it, let's see where we're at. I'm already at 175. That's great. From here, you know, one of the things you could do is figure out what lugs are tighter, what are looser before you even start working your way up. I don't think that matters too much. We're going to bring it up quite a bit. When you are using a tune bot, it's important that you muffle the bottom head. So you saw me take this guy. Guess I should have mentioned that. You need to do something to muffle that bottom head so you're only getting the note of the top head. If you guys want to hear it, here we go. That one's a little bit lower, lower, back to here. That one's quite a bit lower, 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 lower. Let's bring it up just a little bit on these guys. Those triple flange hoops, you're gonna have more flex on the hoop. With die cast, it's gonna be a little bit more rigid as everything tightens up. So if you're looking for the easiest tuning, usually it's going to be die-cast tubes. If you're looking for the most sustain, you probably want to go triple flange. Again, preference. Okay, I'm going to give it about a quarter of a turn here. Let's see where we're at on the tune bot. I'm going for somewhere in the 250 realm, maybe 245, something like that. Let's just kind of see where we are by ear first. We're already getting there, and that's only going finger tight like this, thumb tight on the key, and then a quarter turn. That's still pretty loose. A lot of people are going so high on their snares you can't really hear it anymore. It just becomes a crack. That's not what I want here, especially for a church setting. There we go, 221. 220. That guy's 214. And 214 across from it. So this side needs to come up a little bit. Bring this guy up. So, like I said, I'm going for around 250, 245. I don't want to get past that as I'm tuning right now. I'm going to try and work my way up to that level without having to adjust a lot of lugs as I get there. So I'm trying to get it in tune early and then continue my way up. So let's see, I just pushed on this quite a bit. So the reading on the tune bot's gonna go down. Make sure that you're kind of paying attention to that with a new head. So even with bringing these up about another quarter turn, then pushing on that head, it only went up to 225. I'm gonna bring this down a tiny bit, kind of even it out. We're really close to in tune already though. Everything's from 226 and 229. So let's give it a little more push. We're kind of stretching this head as we bring it up. Okay, we're just going to do a little bit here, maybe an 1/8 of a turn all the way around, trying to keep it consistent, and then we'll see where we're at. Like I said, my goal is to hit about 245 or 250, but I don't want to go past it and have to readjust. I want to bring it into tune as we're getting there. 248, 245, 245, 249, 245. So we're right there. So let's pick our number. Let's say it's going to be 246 is what we're going for, and we're gonna really fine tune this guy. I want it to be exact. Everything's right about there. 246. 244. It's gotta come up a little bit, which means this gotta come down. 246, 246, 246. 248. We're gonna bring this guy down a little, that guy down. 246. 246, 246, 247. So it's just these two guys need to come down the tiniest little bit. I'm pushing on the head again, so that's gonna bring it down, and then we're gonna have to come up the tiniest little bit for all these. It's gonna give us a little room to work. This is like real fine tuning. The opposite of some of the other videos I have that are just get it together and let's go. All right, let's see where we're at. 247, 246, 246, 248, 246, 246, 246, 246. So we're right there. They're all right at 246 or 247. Bring it up just a tiny bit on a couple of these. Okay, 246, 245, 245, 246, 246, 245, 246, 246. So I'm within 1 hertz on every single lug. So that should sound pretty good. Let's toss it over on the kit and let's hear how it sounds just wide open with a couple of mics.